I turned to the media team near the stage, giving a subtle nod. One of them hesitated, then nodded back and pressed play. The hall fell silent, as if the world held its breath. Everyone expected a love song, a sweet message. But instead, Sarah's voice rang out cold and sharp, cutting through the air. "James is always so busy. He doesn't even satisfy me like Max does. He's weak, boring. If it weren't for his money, I wouldn't have stayed this long. I'll marry him, then divorce him, take half his fortune. Then I'll go straight to Ryan, my true love." Gasps echoed through the hall. Guests covered their mouths, some dropping their phones. "What did she say?" A woman whispered, her voice trembling. "Is that Sarah's voice?" Sarah stood frozen, her face pale as wax. Her proud smile vanished, her hands trembling. She bowed her head, unable to meet anyone's eyes, as if every gaze in the room burned her. I stood tall, staring at the crowd, my heart pounding, but my resolve unshaken. I pulled a pair of sunglasses from my pocket and put them on, not to look cool, but to hide the tears welling up. Sarah stumbled back, her breathing ragged, her legs weak. Then, like a broken doll, she collapsed to the floor, fainting. The crowd erupted in chaos, but I didn't move. I didn't touch her. I just stood there, adjusting my sunglasses, taking a deep breath, and walked out of the hall, head held high. Shouts, crashing chairs, and the sound of flowers being trampled followed me. The once glorious hall was now a mess of chaos, but I didn't look back. I had exposed the truth, not for revenge, but for justice. Sarah had used love to manipulate, to exploit my trust, but I, an American man, wouldn't let deceit triumph. I stepped into the sunlight, but darkness still enveloped my heart. I knew my journey wasn't over, but at least I had reclaimed my dignity. I stood there before the gleaming glass doors of the seaside hotel, my heart pounding like waves crashing against the shore. The night sea whispered beyond, blending with the warm golden glow spilling from the luxurious hotel lobby. I, James, was to become a groom tomorrow. Sarah, the love of my life, had just stepped out of a sleek black car, resplendent in her elegant dress, her golden hair shimmering under the moonlight. Beside her was Max, a massive black bulldog, his piercing eyes glaring at me as if they could see through my soul. I smiled, hurrying to embrace her, my lips brushing her cheek in a moment as sweet as a dream. But then, grr, grr, Max growled, lunging forward, clamping his jaws onto my pant leg, pulling with such force it felt like he wanted to tear my world apart. "Max, stop it!" Sarah shouted, her voice a mix of worry and embarrassment. I struggled to free my leg, my heart racing with a blend of fear and frustration. Max wouldn't let go, his eyes holding a warning I couldn't decipher. "Why do you always bring this dog?" I snapped, my tone sharper than intended. Sarah looked at me, her blue eyes sparkling with gentleness, but also a hint of distance. "I'm sorry, honey," she said, her voice sweet as honey. "Max just doesn't want to be left alone." I exhaled heavily, trying to suppress my anger. "But why is he only aggressive with me every time I kiss you? It's like he wants to tear me apart." Sarah gave a soft laugh, the kind that made me both adore and resent her. "Oh, James, he's just a dog. He's protecting me, that's all." But I didn't buy it. Something wasn't right. Max wasn't like this with others, just me. I shook my head, trying to dispel the unease rising within me. Sarah took my hand, pulling me into the hotel, her voice chirping about wedding plans. "Come on, don't think about Max. Let's talk about us. Tomorrow's our big day." We stepped into the elevator, followed by a hotel staff member holding Max's leash. I glanced at him, still sitting there silent, but watching me with unblinking eyes like a shadow tracking my every move. A small voice in my head whispered, asterisk, "Be careful, James, something's wrong." But I pushed it aside. Sarah was here, radiant, happy. She was everything I'd ever dreamed of, smart, beautiful, and in love with me, or so I thought. When the elevator doors opened, Sarah gasped at the lavish room. Fresh flowers filled the space balloons floated above, and a large sign read, "The last night before she says I do." Wine and gifts were elegantly arranged on the table. "Oh my God, James, this is amazing," she exclaimed, hugging me tightly, her voice trembling with emotion. I smiled, but my gaze drifted to Max, now sitting in the corner motionless, his eyes still fixed on me. I felt his stare cold and ominous, like a warning. Sarah didn't notice. She was too caught up in her joy, her dreams of tomorrow. But I felt a storm brewing, though I didn't yet know its shape. Then my phone buzzed. Mike, my best friend, texted that our friends had arrived. "I have to go meet them," I said, kissing Sarah's cheek. She nodded, her smile radiant. "Say hi for me." I stepped out, leaving Sarah and Max in the glowing room. As the door closed, I didn't know this moment was the beginning of a nightmare that would change my life forever. But at that moment, I felt only love, hope, and the pride of a man stepping into his future, a future I believe belonged to me and Sarah, to the American dream of eternal love. I left the hotel room, my heart still soaring from Sarah's smile, but Max's cold stare lingered like a knife in my mind. The hotel lobby glowed with dazzling lights, and the distant sound of waves reminded me of the American dream I was living: love, success, and a bright future with the woman I adored. I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the unease. "It's just a dog," I told myself, echoing Sarah's words. But deep down, I knew something was off. In the lobby, Mike and my close friends were waiting, their faces beaming. They brought shimmering balloons, carefully wrapped gifts, a guy playing the trumpet, and a massive heart-shaped cake covered in bright red frosting. "She's going to lose her mind," Mike said, clapping my shoulder, his eyes sparkling with excitement. I held a bouquet of red roses, their sweet scent making my heart race. "Thanks, guys," I said, my voice brimming with pride. "This will be a moment Sarah will never forget." We walked down the hall, our shoes echoing on the marble floor, my heart pounding like a symphony. I'd planned this surprise for weeks. It would be a testament to my love, the perfect start to our new life. We stopped in front of Sarah's room. "All right," I whispered, my voice trembling with excitement. "When she opens the door, I'll give her the flowers. The trumpet guy will play, then you all bring in the gifts. Simple, right?" Mike nodded, grinning. "She's going to love it, James." I raised my hand to knock my heart racing like a drum roll, but then a sound stopped me cold. Laughter. Sarah's laughter, bright and carefree, coming from inside. I froze, my hand hovering in the air. She was on the phone, her voice clear through the thin wooden door. "Can you believe it? James says he doesn't want to keep Max after we're married." Sarah laughed, her tone mocking. "He thinks Max is too aggressive with him." I frowned, my hand slowly lowering. She continued, her voice light but cutting. "Max is just jealous. He thinks I belong to him, doesn't want to share me with anyone." I gave a faint smile, thinking it was just harmless teasing. But her next words hit me like a dagger to the heart. "James is always so busy with work. He doesn't even satisfy me like Max does." I blinked, my mouth falling open. The bouquet in my hand trembled. "What?" I whispered, my breath catching. Sarah went on, her voice quieter but sharp as a blade. "He's weak, boring. If it weren't for his money, I wouldn't have stayed this long." I staggered back, feeling the floor crumble beneath me. Money, that's why she was with me. My blood ran cold, my hands and feet numb. "I'll marry him," Sarah continued, her voice icy. "Then divorce him, take half his fortune. That's the plan. After that, I'll go straight to Ryan. He's the one I truly love." Asterisk crash, asterisk. The bouquet of roses fell to the floor, red petals scattering on the marble like blood. Mike and the others stared at me, stunned. "James, what's wrong?" Mike asked, his voice laced with concern. The trumpet player stood frozen, clueless. But I couldn't speak. I couldn't. I just stood there staring at the door as if it had turned into a wall of fire, burning every dream I'd ever had. Sarah, the woman I loved, the one I thought was my destiny, was nothing but a liar. She didn't love me. She loved my money. And Ryan, his name, was another knife twisting deeper into my chest. "James!" Mike called, stepping closer. But I didn't hear him. My ears rang, Sarah's laughter echoing in my mind. I turned and walked away, each step heavy as if dragging the weight of a shattered world. Tears welled up, hot and unstoppable, streaming down my face. I didn't care about the crushed flowers underfoot, the worried looks from Mike, or the awkward silence of my friends. I just wanted to escape, to flee this cruel truth. But deep inside, a fire began to smolder, not of anger, but of resolve. I wouldn't let Sarah or anyone use me like this. Never again. This was America, where justice and truth must prevail, even if my heart was breaking. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, the dim light casting shadows on my swollen, tear-streaked face. The sound of the sea outside was no longer a song of hope, but a mockery reminding me of my shattered dreams. Sarah's words played on repeat, sharp as blades. "James is weak, boring. If it weren't for his money, I wouldn't have stayed. I'll marry him, then divorce him, take half his fortune. Then I'll go to Ryan, my true love." Each word was a cut, tearing my heart to pieces. I clutched my head, tears dripping onto the floor, each one burning like blood. How could someone be so deceitful? How could Sarah, the woman I loved more than myself, smile and call me honey while plotting to ruin my life. A knock at the door came repeatedly. "James, open the door." Mike called, his voice thick with worry. "What happened? Talk to us." But I didn't answer. I couldn't. What could I say that the woman I was about to marry saw me as a golden ticket, that the love I'd built for years was a lie? I felt humiliated, as if the world was laughing at me. My family had flown in from across the country. Thousands of dollars had gone into the suit, the venue, the wedding, the gifts. Hundreds of eyes awaited a perfect wedding. How could I face them and say, "She's not who I thought"? I buried my face in my hands, sobbing, each cry ripping through my chest. The next morning the sun shone brightly. Birds sang cheerfully, but my world remained cloaked in darkness. I stood slowly like a shadow of myself. I showered, shaved, and put on the groom suit, once a source of pride, now just armor hiding my pain. Mike and my friends gathered around, their eyes full of concern. "Are you okay, James?" they asked, their voices tinged with doubt. "I'm fine," I replied, my voice flat, my eyes empty. I wasn't fine, not at all. But I couldn't let them see me break, not today. The wedding hall appeared before me like a palace, with sparkling chandeliers, gold-plated chairs, and soft music drifting from a piano. Guests filled the seats, cameras flashed, and whispers spread about a dream wedding. I walked in cold and detached, not waving, not greeting anyone. I went straight to the chair by the altar, sat down, and stared at the floor. Murmurs began. "What's wrong with the groom?" someone whispered. I didn't care. In my mind there was only one plan, a fire burning quietly, not for revenge but for justice. Sarah had used me, turned love into a weapon. I wouldn't let her win. Then Sarah appeared. She entered the hall like a queen, her wedding dress glittering under the lights, a bouquet in her hands like a symbol of perfection. The crowd applauded, phones raised to capture the moment. "She's like an angel," someone exclaimed. Sarah smiled proudly, gliding down the aisle, her eyes briefly meeting mine with feigned confidence. She sat beside me, leaning in to whisper something sweet, but I didn't hear. I didn't look at her. My face was stone, my heart a furnace of burning resolve. Sarah's smile faded, but she didn't know this moment would end the game she'd orchestrated. The ceremony began. The officiant stepped forward, ready to speak sacred words. But I raised my hand, my voice ringing out strong and clear, "Wait." The crowd fell silent, all eyes on me. "I have a special gift for my bride," I said, my tone calm, but carrying a storm within. The guests clapped, expecting a romantic gesture. Sarah smiled, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She loved surprises. But Mike, standing behind, frowned with worry. He sensed something was wrong. I turned to the media team near the stage, giving a subtle nod. One of them hesitated, then nodded back and pressed play. The hall fell silent, as if the world held its breath. Everyone expected a love song, a sweet message. But instead, Sarah's voice rang out cold and sharp, cutting through the air. "James is always so busy. He doesn't even satisfy me like Max does. He's weak, boring. If it weren't for his money, I wouldn't have stayed. I'll marry him, then divorce him, take half his fortune, then I'll go to Ryan, my true love." Gasps echoed through the hall. Guests covered their mouths, some dropping their phones. "What did she say?" a woman whispered, her voice trembling. "Is that Sarah's voice?" Sarah stood frozen, her face pale as wax. Her proud smile vanished, her hands shaking. She bowed her head, unable to meet anyone's eyes, as if every gaze in the room burned her. I stood tall, staring at the crowd, my heart pounding, but my resolve unshaken. I pulled a pair of sunglasses from my pocket and put them on, not to look cool, but to hide the tears welling up. Sarah stumbled back, her breathing ragged, her legs weak. Then, like a broken doll, she collapsed to the floor, fainting. The crowd erupted in chaos, but I didn't move. I didn't touch her. I just stood there, adjusting my sunglasses, taking a deep breath, and walked out of the hall, head held high. Shouts, crashing chairs, and the sound of flowers being trampled followed me. The once glorious hall was now a mess of chaos, but I didn't look back. I had exposed the truth, not for revenge, but for justice. Sarah had used love to manipulate, to exploit my trust, but I, an American man, wouldn't let deceit triumph. I stepped into the sunlight, but darkness still enveloped my heart. I knew my journey wasn't over, but at least I had reclaimed my dignity. I walked out of the wedding hall, the morning sun blazing like a slap to my face, but it couldn't dispel the darkness within. The shouts breaking glass and murmurs from the crowd faded behind me, but Sarah's voice haunted me like a demon, whispering, "If it weren't for his money, I wouldn't have stayed." I clenched my fists' nails, digging into my palms, trying to suppress the pain tearing through my chest. I had exposed the truth, stood up for justice, but this victory brought no joy. It left only a void where dreams of a family, a future, and eternal love with Sarah once lived. I returned to my apartment, slamming the door and collapsing onto the bed, still in my crumpled groom suit. Tears flowed again, uncontrollable. I cried like a child, each sob ripping through my heart. My phone buzzed incessantly, messages from Mike, family, and friends piling up. "James, where are you?" Opened the door, were worried, but I didn't respond. I couldn't face their pitying looks or probing questions. I felt like a failure, a fool who had poured his heart into a liar's hands. America celebrates resilience, but at that moment I was just a broken man betrayed by the one I loved most. Days passed, then weeks. I didn't eat, didn't work, didn't go out. I locked myself in my apartment, letting darkness swallow me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's fake smile, heard her mocking laughter. James is weak, boring. I wondered, how was I so blind? How did I not see she saw me as a tool, a ticket to wealth? But in my pain, a resolve began to form. I couldn't let Sarah or anyone define my worth. I needed to find myself again, not for money, not for fame, but for who I was, a proud American man, unyielding in the face of injustice. I decided to leave it all behind. Without a goodbye, without telling Mike or my family, I packed a few simple clothes, leaving behind expensive suits, gold watches, and every trace of my lavish life. I drove to a small, growing town where no one knew my name. Dusty roads, modest houses, and genuine smiles from locals felt like a balm for my wounds. I rented a small, cozy, one-bedroom house with a window overlooking a green field. I traded designer shoes for worn jeans and a t-shirt, living as an ordinary man, not James the wealthy, but just James searching for meaning. One rainy afternoon, I walked along a muddy dirt road toward the local grocery store. My mind was still heavy, but the fresh air and birdsong lightened my heart. Suddenly, a car sped by, kicking up a wave of muddy water that soaked me. Mud splattered my shirt, face, and hair. I stood frozen, drenched, and humiliated, feeling like the world was mocking me again. The car screeched to a halt, and a young woman jumped out, her face full of panic. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't see the puddle. I was in a hurry. Please forgive me." I looked up, still stunned. She had warm brown eyes, her hair tied back simply, and a sincere smile I hadn't seen in ages. "It's fine," I said, wiping mud from my hands, my voice calmer than I felt. But she didn't stop. She ran to her car, grabbed a clean towel, and began gently wiping mud from my shirt. "You don't have to," I said again, but she kept going, her eyes full of guilt. "I feel awful," she said, her voice soft as a lullaby. "I'm Olivia, and you are—" "James," I replied, a strange feeling washing over me as I said my name without titles or wealth. She smiled, her grin bright as sunlight through the rain. "Thanks for not being mad," she said, then hurried back to her car, disappearing into the dusty road. I stood there soaked and cold, but my heart warmed. She's kind, asterisk, I thought. Asterisk, not many would do that. I shook my head, smiling faintly for the first time in weeks. I had missed my chance to ask for her number, but that moment was a small spark reminding me the world still held good people. Weeks later, fate smiled again. I was leaving the local mall carrying grocery bags when I spotted Olivia outside laughing with a friend. She wore a simple dress, her hair tied up, but those eyes, still warm, still genuine, made my heart race. I approached, trying to stay calm. "Hi," I said, my voice slightly shaky. Olivia turned, her eyes lighting up. "Oh, it's you," she exclaimed. "I didn't expect to see you here." We laughed, and she introduced her friend Emily. "I'm Olivia," she said, her smile radiant. "So nice to meet you properly, James." We talked, our conversation flowing naturally like a river. For the first time since the ruined wedding, I felt seen not as a wallet, but as a person. Before we parted, I gathered my courage. "Can I get your number?" I asked. Olivia smiled, handing me her phone. I typed in my number, saved hers, and as she walked away, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Not love, not yet, but a new beginning. After all the pain, I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could trust again. But I didn't know the journey ahead would test my patience and dignity in ways I never imagined. The days following our mall encounter brought a new breeze into my life. Olivia, the girl with the warm smile and sincere eyes, became a light in my dark days. We texted every morning, called late at night, and each conversation felt like a brick building a bridge back to the world I thought had collapsed. But even as joy crept in, I remained cautious. The scar from Sarah's betrayal lingered, a reminder that love could be a double-edged sword. I wanted to believe Olivia was different, but my cracked heart whispered asterisk. Be careful, James. Don't get hurt again. One golden afternoon, I mustered the courage to ask Olivia out. Are you free this weekend? I asked over the phone, trying to sound calm. I'd like to take you somewhere special. She laughed softly, her voice clear as a wind chime. Sure, James. But, can I bring Emily, the friend from the mall? I hesitated, picturing Emily's slightly haughty smile. Of course, I said, though a twinge of unease stirred within. Asterisk, watch out, James, asterisk, a small voice warned. Something's not right. The day of the date arrived, and I woke up nervous as a schoolboy before his first date. I put on my cleanest shirt, combed my hair carefully, and stepped into my beat-up old car. Its paint-faded, radio-broken engine coughing like it had a cold. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, a symbol of the simple, honest life I'd chosen. I drove through dusty roads to Olivia's house, my heart pounding. When I honked, Olivia peeked out her window, her smile radiant. But as she and Emily stepped out, I caught Emily's glance. She eyed my car, her brows furrowing, lips pursing as if she'd smelled something foul. This is your car, she said, her tone dripping with disdain. Olivia shot her a look, whispering, Emily, don't. But Emily just shook her head and got in without another word. I kept my smile, greeting them. You both look great, I said sincerely. Olivia smiled back. Thanks, James. But Emily muttered something, her eyes glued to her phone. I drove to a small, cozy restaurant, not fancy, but warm, with wooden tables and soft golden lights. I wanted it to reflect who I was, simple but meaningful. We sat by a window, sunlight glinting off Olivia's hair. The waiter approached, notepad in hand. Good afternoon. What would you like? A plate of rice and water, I said, smiling lightly. Olivia ordered simply two, rice and water for me. But Emily raised her hand, sitting up straight, her tone commanding. I'll have rice grilled, chicken grilled, fish salad, and your most expensive bottle of wine. Olivia froze, whispering, Emily, that's a bit much. But Emily ignored her, adding dessert. I hid my growing anxiety, but inside I sensed a trap forming. The meal passed in awkward silence. Olivia tried to spark conversation, sharing stories about her day at the bookstore where she worked, but Emily scrolled her phone, occasionally glancing at me with a probing look. When the food arrived, I ate slowly, carefully aware I needed to budget for the bill. But when the waiter brought it, my heart sank. The total far exceeded what I'd brought. I leaned toward Olivia, my voice low, almost pleading. Olivia, I'm a bit short. Can you help? Before Olivia could respond, Emily cut in, her voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. You took us out to eat and can't even pay the bill. My face burned as if slapped in front of a crowd. Olivia glared at Emily, whispering sharply, Don't do that, Emily. But Emily smirked, crossing her arms. Olivia quietly opened her purse, slipping me a few bills under the table. Here, James, she whispered, her eyes full of apology. I took the money, paid the bill, but humiliation weighed on my chest like a boulder. People around us stared, and I felt smaller than ever. The drive back was silent. At an intersection, a sleek white luxury car pulled up beside us, honking loudly. The driver, a guy in sunglasses with a gold chain, rolled down his window and shouted, Hey, pretty lady, can we talk? Emily smiled, not hesitating, stepping out of my car to approach him. They chatted, she giggled, flipped her hair, and exchanged numbers right in front of me. I sat in my car, watching through the rearview mirror, feeling another stab of betrayal. Emily returned, muttering, Thanks for the outing. Olivia was kinder. Thank you so much, James. I had fun. But I just nodded, driving them home in silence. At Emily's house, I decided to try again. Sitting on her cramped sofa, I looked at Olivia, my heart racing. Emily, I said, my voice trembling, if one day I proposed, would you say yes? Emily froze, stared at me, then burst into laughter, sharp as a knife. Proposed to me looking like this. She stood, crossing her arms. I blame myself for letting you into my house. You're just a broke nobody. Her words burned, scorching the last of my pride. I sat motionless, feeling the floor collapse beneath me. Olivia walked in from the next room, her face shocked. What's going on? She asked, looking between us. Emily smirked. He dared to ask if I'd marry him. Ridiculous. Olivia turned to me, her eyes soft but firm. Emily, what's wrong with him wanting to marry you? James is a good man, Emily snapped. Then you marry him if you like him so much. Olivia looked at me, her eyes glistening as if on the verge of tears. I would marry him, she said, her voice steady, if he truly wanted me. I looked up stunned. Are you serious, Olivia? I whispered. She nodded, smiling softly. I would, James. Since our dinner, I've seen you're special. I just didn't want to come between you and Emily. Emily glared at us, muttering, Do whatever you want. I don't care. She turned to the window where a white luxury car had just pulled up. Ethan, the guy from the intersection, stepped out, arms full of designer bags. Emily squealed, ran out to hug him, and opened gifts right at the door. But Olivia stayed by me, gently holding my hand. Don't listen to her, she said. You deserve to be loved, James, truly. In that moment, I felt a new strength. Emily could mock me, choose money over people, but Olivia saw me, not my wallet, not my status, but James, the real me. America is a place where people like Emily exploit kindness for gain, but it's also where people like Olivia remind me that decency and true love still exist. I held Olivia's hand tighter, knowing this painful journey was leading me to something greater. Olivia held my hand, her eyes like a beacon in the storm raging within me. Emily's insults still echoed, but Olivia's warm touch reminded me I wasn't alone. In Emily's small room, as she ran to embrace Ethan and his designer bags, I felt a shift within. No longer the pain of Sarah's betrayal or the humiliation of Emily's scorn. Instead, a new fire burned, not of revenge, but of determination to live true to myself, to seek honest love in a world full of deceit. I looked at Olivia, my heart pounding, and knew that despite the challenges ahead, she was why I wanted to keep going. I called Olivia one Friday evening, my voice trembling with nerves. Olivia, I'd like to take you to dinner. Wear something nice. I'll pick you up. She laughed softly over the phone, her voice clear. Is there a special occasion, James? You'll see when we get there, I replied, smiling. I hung up, stood before the mirror, adjusting my newly tailored navy suit, a gold watch glinting on my wrist. It was time for the world to see the real me, not poor James, but James, the man who had walked through darkness to find light again. When I arrived at Olivia's, it wasn't in my beat-up car, but a fleet of sleek black SUVs gliding down the narrow street like a royal procession. Neighbors gaped, whispering, Who's that? Who are they here for? Olivia stepped out wearing an elegant peach dress, her hair shimmering in the sunset. Her jaw dropped when she saw me step out of the lead SUV, my suit-crisp shoes polished, and a team of bodyguards standing respectfully behind. James, what's all this? She asked, her voice shaky, eyes wide with shock. I smiled, gently taking her hand. I'm not who you thought, Olivia. I'm not poor. I never was. She blinked, trying to process. These are my cars, my team, my life, I said, my voice calm but proud. I own multiple companies, but I chose to live simply to find someone who'd love me for me, not my money. Olivia stood frozen, her hand gripping mine as if afraid this was a dream. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. I was betrayed before, I replied, Sarah's image flashing through my mind. I needed to be sure, and you, Olivia, you gave me your heart when I had nothing. We climbed into the SUV, the convoy gliding smoothly to a 5-star restaurant, its golden lights glowing like a palace. Staff lined up to greet us, bowing respectfully. Welcome, Mr. James. Olivia stared at me, speechless. They know your name, she asked. I smiled. I own a share of this place. She shook her head, trying to absorb the truth. We entered a private room where chandeliers sparkled, red roses filled crystal vases, and a glowing sign read, Asterisk, Welcome to a New Beginning. But then I spotted two familiar faces among the carefully selected guests, Emily and Ethan. Emily gaped at me. James with Olivia, she muttered, her voice full of disbelief. Who invited this broke guy here? Ethan, sitting beside her, smirked, but his eyes held something else. Emily went on, her tone mocking. That suit must be borrowed. No way it's real. I didn't respond, just led Olivia to the center stage where lights shone like a halo. Ethan stood approaching and bowing respectfully. Good evening, boss, he said. Olivia spun around, eyes wide. Boss? Emily laughed, but her smile froze when Ethan continued. Yes, Mr. James is my boss. Emily staggered, her voice trembling. What are you saying? You're the rich one. Ethan shook his head. No, I'm just Mr. James's driver. That white car was his. I played a role at his request to test your heart. Emily covered her mouth, her face ashen. You used me, she asked me, her voice breaking. I looked into her eyes, my voice cold but firm. I gave you a chance, Emily. I wanted to see if you'd love someone with nothing, but you showed me your true heart. Emily stepped back, tears glistening. I was wrong, she whispered. If I'd known... I cut her off. That's the problem. You shouldn't need to know someone's rich to treat them kindly. Emily sank into her seat, hands trembling as if her world had collapsed. I turned to Olivia, took a deep breath, and knelt on one knee. The crowd held its breath. I opened a black velvet box, revealing a sparkling diamond ring. Olivia, I said, my voice trembling with emotion, marry me. Let's build a family together based on love, not lies. Olivia covered her mouth, tears streaming down, but before she could answer, Emily screamed, No, don't do it, Olivia. He was mine first. Don't take him. Olivia looked at her friend, her eyes sad but resolute. I'm sorry, Emily, she said, but I love him. He chose me not because I rejected him, but because I loved him even when he had nothing. Olivia turned back, taking my hand. Yes, James, she whispered, I'll marry you. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. I slipped the ring onto her finger, pulled her into my arms, and we kissed the chandeliers, casting light on the moment like an eternal promise. But Emily, unable to bear it, screamed no. She grabbed the table's edge, knocking over wine glasses and a bottle of red glass shattering everywhere. She lifted a chair, ready to throw it, but security rushed in, restraining her. Let me go, she shrieked, struggling, but they escorted her out, her cries fading down the hall. Suddenly the door opened. A young woman stepped in wearing a worn apron, holding a broom and bucket of water. Her hair was disheveled. Her eyes shadowed her face, gaunt. She knelt to clean the broken glass, then looked up, and our eyes met. James, she whispered, her voice trembling. I froze. It was Sarah. No longer the radiant bride in a glittering dress, but a shadow of her past, thin and weary as if life had drained her. She dropped the broom, the bucket wobbling, then turned and ran, her apron fluttering, tears streaming down her face. Olivia gripped my hand, her voice worried. Who is that, James? I looked at the door where Sarah had vanished, then turned back, smiling at Olivia. She doesn't matter anymore, I said. What matters now is you. We embraced so tightly it felt like the world ceased to exist. In that moment, after all the pain, betrayal, and loss, I felt whole. I had won not with money, but with my heart, with faith in true love. This was America, where those who exploit trust pay a price and sincere hearts find each other. This story is a testament to a truth. When deceit and abuse of power try to manipulate a steadfast heart, can rewrite fate. In a world full of temptation and lies, I learned that a person's true value lies not in their wallet, but in their honesty and kindness. The lesson for us all is this: love with all your heart, stand against injustice, and never let anyone dim your light. That is the American spirit, resilient, honest, and unyielding.